there's a line from one of my favorite poets that reminds me of today's gospel. It is a line I often lean into when I need to stay grounded in who I am and who I am called to be and what I'm meant to do. The poem is titled "The Summer Day" by Mary Oliver. And the line says this: "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" This Sunday, we continue the adventure of discipleship in Mark's Gospel. Now, keep in mind, there is a sense of breathlessness when you read the Gospel of Mark, because Jesus always seems to be in a hurry. You'll hear the words immediately and then immediately over and over in nearly every chapter. You almost have to put on running shoes to keep up with the pace of Jesus in this gospel, because he is in a rush to be about the business of healing and restoring others to wholeness along the way. And Jesus brings his friends along this great adventure, and today we hear about Peter, James, Andrew, and John. In this passage from Mark, chapter 1, verses 29 to 39, there is a recognizable pattern in the mission of Jesus. For Christ, his wild and precious life is filled with healing and prayer. Jesus left the synagogue. It's a place of worship and prayer, and then he enters the house to heal Peter's mother-in-law, who is sick with a fever. And in her healing, she then goes back to her mission of service to others. And that cycle of healing and prayer and more healing continues for Jesus as he goes off to a quiet place to pray and then goes forth to preach the gospel of healing and love once more. Healing and prayer. Throughout the gospel, with Jesus, there is a whole lot of healing going on. He takes care of Peter's mother-in-law in this passage. He lays a hand on her, grasps her, helps her up, and the fever leaves her. Then she immediately begins to wait on them. Now, for a long time, I've had a problem with this passage. Here is a woman who is sick with a fever. And anyone who has had a fever, you know how exhausted and drained and zapped of energy you feel. I know if a fever hits me, I am flat out on my back. I can't do anything. But once Jesus cures her, she immediately gets up and starts waiting on these guys. Part of me wants to say to Jesus, come on, give her a break. At least let her rest and recover for a while before she goes back to work. Yet, it's Mark's gospel. And it's important to realize the context of this passage. Everything is immediate in Mark's gospel because of the sense of the nearness of the reign of God. And also, once Peter's mother-in-law is restored to wholeness and health, it seems that she is so energized and so ready to serve that she does not want to wait around for rest. She is ready to serve again immediately. And keep in mind that in the gospel, we do not fully understand that origin of when someone is sick or they're being possessed. If someone were sick or possessed by a demon that we hear in the gospel, we're not sure exactly what that means. The demon or the sickness could be a sense of a false self, your false identity, a mental disorder, an addiction, stress, depression, a negative emotion. We really do not know. But one thing we know, that if someone was labeled sick or possessed, they were considered an outcast and ostracized from the community. They didn't count. They weren't part of the community. And to be set apart from the community, it was dangerous. It meant isolation and rejection. Jesus is about the business of curing and healing people, healing those who are sick. Curing a disease is one thing. Healing someone is another. In the gospel, Jesus is focused on healing and bringing people back to life into the community. The healing of Jesus means bringing significant meaning and life back to people's lives because they are part of the community once more. To be healed by Jesus means that you belong. Your life matters. You belong in community. Jesus models one more important element in today's gospel. It's later on in the same passage in Mark's gospel that says, rising early the next morning, Jesus went off to a lonely place in the desert, and there he was absorbed in prayer. He goes off by himself to a deserted place to pray and spend some time with himself to be alone in prayer. Solitude. That's what it is. And quiet moments can nourish and balance that energy and enthusiasm that we have for life and Jesus had for life to serve and to heal and to give. Those times of reflection are fuel for the journey. And Jesus models this in this gospel for his disciples and for our friends and for us. We are called to do the same. Solitude and service, while living this one wild adventure with great love. So this week, take a moment and reflect on a typical day in your life. What have you set out to do in that day? What is your pattern of prayer? Your mode of service in giving for others? And spend time reflecting, how are we balancing our prayer with our love in action? In what ways are we making room for God in our daily lives? And how are we living to bringing about healing in our community? Helping others feel that they belong, that their life matters. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Amen.